At 7:43 p.m., retired Judge William Thornton was handcuffed for trespassing in Riverside Park. At 8:03 p.m., every phone in the police station was ringing with calls from the mayor, city council, and 3 different news stations. What happened in those 20 minutes would expose a system that judged people by their appearance rather than their work. Judge William Thornton had been returning to the same park bench every evening since his retirement 18 months ago. The bench overlooked the small pond where ducks gathered at sunset, the same spot where he used to bring his late wife Margaret for evening walks during their 43 years of marriage. After Margaret lost her battle with cancer, these quiet moments became his only connection to the memories they had shared. At 74, William looked nothing like the distinguished judge who had once commanded respect in courtrooms across the state. His hair had grown long and unkempt since retirement. His clothes, once perfectly pressed suits, had been replaced by worn jeans, old sweaters, and a jacket that had seen better days. The truth was, after Margaret's medical bills and funeral expenses, his savings had dwindled. His pension covered the basics, but there wasn't much left for the wardrobe that had once defined his professional life. To anyone passing by, William appeared to be just another elderly man down on his luck, but appearances, as he had learned in 40 years on the bench, could be deceiving. That Tuesday evening started like any other. William arrived at the park around sunset, carrying a small paper bag with breadcrumbs for the duck. He settled onto his usual bench, feeling the cool metal against his back as he watched the water reflect the orange and pink hues of the dying light. Officer Sarah Chen was 3 weeks into her new assignment with the Riverside Police Department. At 26, she was eager to prove herself, determined to show her supervisors that she could handle any situation. She had been driving her patrol route when she noticed the elderly man on the bench. She had seen him there before, always alone, always in the same tattered clothes. "Dispatch, this is Unit 247, Sarah spoke into her radio. "I've got a possible vagrant in Riverside Park. Same individual from previous reports." "Copy that. 247. Park closes at 8 p.m. You're authorized to move him along." Sarah parked her cruiser near the entrance and walked toward the bench. As she approached, she could see the man's weathered hands, his frayed jacket, and the worn shoes that had clearly seen years of use. To her, he fit every description of the homeless individuals she had been trained to recognize. "Excuse me, sir," Sarah called out as she approached. "The park closes in 15 minutes. You'll need to move along." William looked up slowly. His eyes, though tired, held a clarity that Sarah didn't expect. "I understand, officer. I'll be leaving shortly." Something in his tone caught her attention. His speech was articulate, educated, but she had encountered plenty of homeless individuals who spoke well. Mental illness and substance abuse, she had been taught, could affect anyone regardless of their background. "Sir, I've had reports of you sleeping here. Is that correct?" William shook his head gently. "No, officer. I come here to remember my wife. We used to walk here together." Sarah softened slightly, but her training kicked in. "Do you have somewhere to go tonight? A shelter? Family? Friends?" "I have a home," William replied quietly. "Can you show me identification?" William reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. Inside, Sarah could see various cards, but the wallet itself looked old and battered. As he handed her his driver's license, she noticed his hands shaking slightly. Sarah examined the license. William J. Thornton, age 74. Address on Maple Street. She ran the address through her mental map of the city. Maple Street was in one of the older, more run-down neighborhoods. The license photo showed a much younger, cleaner version of the man sitting before her. "Mr. Thornton, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning." "Questioning about what, officer?" "There have been reports of loitering and possible trespassing. You've been warned before about staying here after hours." William stood slowly, his joints stiff from sitting. "Officer, I've never been warned about anything. This is only the second time we've spoken." Sarah's patience was wearing thin. In her experience, individuals experiencing homelessness or mental health issues often forgot previous encounters with law enforcement. "Sir, please place your hands behind your back." "Officer, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Sir, you're under arrest for trespassing and failure to comply with a lawful order." As the handcuffs clicked around William's wrists, a jogger passing by slowed down to watch. Then, another pedestrian stopped. Within minutes, a small crowd had gathered, some pulling out phones to record the incident. "This is ridiculous," called out a woman walking her dog. "He's just an old man sitting on a bench." "Mind your own business," Sarah responded, guiding William toward her patrol car. As she helped him into the back seat, William spoke quietly. "Officer Chen, you're making a mistake." Sarah paused. How did he know her name? She looked at her uniform, confirming her name tag was visible. Still, something about the way he said it gave her a moment of uncertainty. The drive to the station took 12 minutes. During the journey, William sat silently in the back seat, looking out at the familiar streets of the city he had served for 4 decades. He thought about the hundreds of cases he had presided over, the decisions that had shaped lives, the responsibility he had carried every day he wore the robes of his office. At the Riverside Police Station, Sarah led William through the booking process. As she filled out the paperwork, she noticed his information once again. William J. Thornton, 74 years old, address on Maple Street. Something about the name nagged at her, but she couldn't place it. Meanwhile, across town, Mayor Patricia Williams was finishing dinner with her family when her phone rang. The caller ID showed her chief of staff. "Patricia, we have a situation," he said without preamble. "Judge Thornton has been arrested." The mayor nearly dropped her phone. "What? Which Judge Thornton?" "William Thornton, retired. He was arrested about 20 minutes ago for trespassing in Riverside Park." Mayor Williams felt her stomach drop. Judge William Thornton wasn't just any retired judge. He was the man who had officiated her wedding 15 years ago. He was the judge who had presided over some of the most important cases in the city's recent history. He was also the judge who had lost his wife to cancer and had been struggling since his retirement. More importantly, he was scheduled to be honored next week at the annual Police Community Relations Dinner for his 40 years of service to the justice system. "Get me Chief Rodriguez on the phone immediately," she ordered, "and find out which officer made the arrest." While the mayor was making frantic phone calls back at the station, Sergeant Mike Rodriguez was reviewing the evening's arrest reports when William's name jumped off the page. Rodriguez had been with the department for 22 years. He had testified in Judge Thornton's courtroom dozens of times during his career. "Chen," Rodriguez called out. "What's this arrest report about Judge Thornton?" Sarah looked up from her desk, confused. "Judge, sir, I arrested a homeless man for trespassing. William Thornton." Rodriguez stared at her. "Officer Chen, William Thornton isn't homeless. He's Judge William Thornton, retired. He served on the state bench for 40 years. The color drained from Sarah's face. "That's impossible, sir. The man I arrested was clearly—" Her words were cut off by the ringing of every phone in the station. The first call was from the mayor. The second was from the city attorney. The third was from a local news station that had already received video footage of the arrest from witnesses in the park. Rodriguez answered the mayor's call. Chief Rodriguez speaking. "Mike, what the hell's going on? Why is Judge Thornton in your jail?" "Ma'am, there seems to have been a misunderstanding. One of my officers—" "I don't want to hear about misunderstandings. I want him released immediately, and I want a full report on my desk within the hour." As Rodriguez hung up, he turned to Sarah. "Officer Chen, we need to release Mr. Thornton immediately." "But sir, he was trespassing." "Officer, Judge Thornton has probably forgotten more about the law than you and I will ever know. He wasn't trespassing, he was grieving." Rodriguez walked to the holding area where William sat quietly on a bench, still in handcuffs. The older man looked up as the sergeant approached. "Judge Thornton, I am deeply sorry about this incident. You're being released immediately." William nodded calmly. "Thank you, Sergeant Rodriguez. I remember you from the Patterson case in 2018. Rodriguez was amazed that the judge remembered him from one case among thousands. As he removed the handcuffs, he felt the weight of the mistake that had been made. "Sir, is there anything we can do? Anyone we can call?" "No, thank you. I just want to go home." But as they walked toward the front desk, the station doors burst open. Mayor Williams strode in, her face a mixture of anger and concern. Behind her were 2 city council members and the police chief. "Judge Thornton," the mayor said, rushing toward him, "I'm so sorry. This should never have happened." William extended his hand to shake hers. "Patricia, good to see you. How are David and the children?" The mayor was touched that he remembered her family. "They're well, sir, but this is unacceptable. You have my word that there will be a full investigation." By now, Officer Chen was beginning to understand the magnitude of her mistake. She approached the group hesitantly. "Judge Thornton, I'm sorry. I didn't know." William turned to face her. His expression was kind, not angry. "Officer Chen, you were doing your job as you understood it, but perhaps this can be a learning moment." "Sir?" "In my 40 years on the bench, I learned that every person who appears before you carries a story. Homeless or housed, young or old, well-dressed or poorly dressed. Every individual deserves dignity and the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise." He paused, looking around at the assembled officials. "I don't blame Officer Chen. She saw an elderly man in old clothes and made assumptions. But perhaps this incident can help all of us remember that appearances can be deceiving." Chief Martinez, who had just arrived, stepped forward. "Judge, we'd like to offer you a ride home." "That's kind, but I have my car. I parked it near the park before my walk." The mayor intervened. "Please let us drive you back to your car. It's the least we can do." During the ride back to Riverside Park, Mayor Williams sat beside William in the back of the police cruiser. She had worked with him on various community initiatives over the years and had always respected his wisdom and fairness. "Judge, I heard about Margaret. I should have reached out sooner." William gazed out the window at the passing streetlight. "Thank you, Patricia. It's been difficult. The park where I was arrested, that's where Margaret and I used to walk every evening. It's where I feel closest to her memory." "I had no idea. How could you?" "From the outside, I probably do look like someone who's lost his way, and perhaps in some ways I have. The mayor was quiet for a moment. Judge, you're scheduled to be honored at next week's police community relations dinner. Would you still be willing to attend? William considered this. I think it might be good for everyone involved. When they reached the park, William's old Honda Civic sat alone in the parking area. As he got out of the police car, he turned back to the mayor. Patricia, I have a request. Anything. I'd like Officer Chen to be at that dinner, not for punishment, but for recognition. The mayor looked confused. Recognition. She made an honest mistake based on incomplete information, but she was polite. She followed procedure, and when she realized her error, she showed genuine remorse. Those are the qualities we want in our officer. A week later, the police community relations dinner was held at the Riverside Community Center. Nearly 300 people attended, including city officials, police officers, and community leaders. Judge William Thornton took the stage wearing a perfectly pressed suit, looking every inch the distinguished jurist he had always been. The transformation was remarkable, and many in the audience who had seen news coverage of his arrest could hardly believe it was the same man. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. A week ago, I was arrested in Riverside Park for trespassing. Some of you may have seen the news coverage or the social media posts about the incident. The room was silent, everyone hanging on his word. I'm here tonight not to criticize the officer who arrested me, but to praise her. Officer Sarah Chen saw someone who appeared to be breaking the law, and she enforced that law fairly and professionally. She treated me with respect, even when she believed I was homeless and confused. He paused, looking out at the audience until he found Sarah, who was sitting near the back, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. Officer Chen, would you please stand? Reluctantly, Sarah stood. She had been dreading this moment all week. This young officer represents what we should expect from law enforcement. She saw someone who appeared to need help, and she responded appropriately. She didn't use excessive force. She didn't treat me poorly because of my appearance. She did her job. The audience began to murmur appreciatively. The mistake wasn't in her actions, but in our assumption. We live in a society that too often judges people by their appearance, their circumstances, or their perceived status. I spent 40 years trying to ensure that justice was blind, that everyone who appeared in my courtroom was treated fairly regardless of how they looked or where they came from. William's voice grew stronger, but somewhere along the way, I forgot to apply that same principle to my own life. After my wife died, I let myself go. I stopped caring about my appearance. I became invisible in my own community. He looked directly at Sarah. Officer Chen held up a mirror for all of us. She showed us how easy it is to make assumptions and how important it is to treat everyone with dignity, even when we think we know their story. The judge smiled. I'm recommending Officer Chen for commendation, not discipline. She reminded me that respect isn't something you earn just once. It's something you must choose to give to others every day, regardless of circumstances. The audience erupted in applause. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as her fellow officers and community members stood to acknowledge her. After the ceremony, Sarah approached Judge Thornton. Sir, I still feel terrible about what happened. Officer Chen, do you know what I learned from our encounter? No, sir. I learned that I had become so focused on my grief that I had forgotten my responsibility to my community. After Margaret died, I withdrew from everything that had given my life meaning. I stopped participating in community events, stopped mentoring young lawyers, stopped contributing to the civic life of our city. He gestured around the room. Tonight reminded me that I still have something to offer. Age and loss don't disqualify us from service. They deepen our capacity for understanding. 3 months later, Judge William Thornton began volunteering with the police department's community outreach program. He started a monthly series called Law and Life, where he spoke to young officers about the intersection of legal procedure and human dignity. Officer Sarah Chen was promoted to detective 6 months after the incident. She often credited her encounter with Judge Thornton as the moment she truly understood the weight of responsibility that came with her badge. And every evening at sunset, Judge Thornton still visited Riverside Park. But now, instead of sitting alone on the bench, he was often joined by other community members who had heard his story. The park became a gathering place for anyone seeking connection, understanding, or simply a moment of peace. The bench where he used to sit alone now bears a small plaque in memory of Margaret Thornton and in honor of the dignity that lives within every person. Because respect isn't just about recognizing someone's achievements, it's about seeing the human worth that exists in every individual, regardless of their circumstances, their appearance, or their current chapter in life. True justice isn't just about applying the law fairly. It's about treating every person as worthy of dignity, understanding, and second chances. If you enjoyed this story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story.